In this video, we're going to cover everything new in the bike patch for Cities Skylines 2. All the bike features, road upgrades, networks and parking assets. And while bikes might steal the show, this patch is full of additional free content, including 5 new service buildings, 8 new public transit buildings, 5 new parks, 2 new Oldtown mixed-use zones and some very welcome new assets to 2 existing zones. There's also lots of bug fixes, including a fix to the insane amount of new traffic generated by the previous patch. There's a ton to cover here, so let's dive in. Now, the first thing you're gonna notice some 30 seconds after loading your existing city into this new patch is the addition of bikes and how cyclists are going to try navigating your roads if they deem that mode of transportation the most efficient. Having a look at a street in downtown Meridian, we spot Irina Mullins on her bike moving through Arborview Street. Now the first positive here is that the actual animations around these bikes and how people will like put a foot down when they stop at a traffic light. Of course, Irina kinda just cheated us out of that animation here. We're gonna see if she'll stop at this upcoming road. Oh no, it doesn't have a traffic light. This recording is going terribly. Oh, she just did it. You'll have to believe me. That's a positive. I think they really nailed the animations, so I'm very happy to see that. Now this also leads me to my first annoyance, although I should say in general I'm very excited about this patch and all the content, but I don't like how the default behavior of these cyclists on non-biking streets is to pretty much occupy the entire car lane, and we can kind of see that in effect here as well as they approach the roundabout. Now they do cycle pretty fast. I'm gonna assume that there's like a lot of electrical horsepowers in these bikes, but they do also slow down traffic. They don't move as fast as cars at all. Now from an annoyance to something else that's really positive is the fact that all the bike racks currently added to so many assets throughout the free content and DLCs, they're actually functional, they're not just props. So bikes are not treated like pocket bikes, just like cars aren't pocket cars, and people need to actually park them somewhere. And once again, the animations, they just completely nailed it. And the foresight of making sure that all these bike racks are actually functional when we get this functionality, like the added bikes, is just an awesome surprise. We're going to cover bike parking in specifics a little later, but I think for now the natural transition is to look into how we can avoid this situation. We have plenty of new infrastructure we can utilize to make our cities and districts more bike friendly, and I like the fact that we have several choices to choose from. And this segment with Arborview Street is a fantastic location to start. Because if we move into roads and road services, we could commit to a double bicycle lane upgrade of the roads here. So if we just cover the entire street here, you can kind of see how these bike lanes have been added where parking used to be. And actually in this specific case, this asymmetric road, it's pretty much just made the sidewalks a little more narrow because parking wasn't allowed here in the first place. But in the case of the regular 2-lane road, you can kind of see that parking has been removed to make way for bikes. And I think the sidewalk might even be a little more wide here. Either way, I'm very pleased with the texture and color choice. They had to pick something that would work universally because in some places it's going to be a light blue, which is the case here in Denmark. And of course, in other famous examples like in the Netherlands, you will often see this maroon or dark red being used instead. I don't mind this green. I think it looks pretty nice. And I do appreciate how the invisible lanes and pathing work in this game compared to Cities 1. So the fact that we get these broken lines whenever you have entrances and exits of assets in place is just a great addition. We also get the same pattern here where there's obviously like some pathing here from the bikes to the nearby bike rack. While having dedicated bike lanes as part of this main road is certainly a lot safer than not having it, as we see with the default behavior, it's still not quite safe, and it's not the hallmark of a city that really prioritizes biking. If we want to do that, we should have a dedicated network to cyclists that is completely disconnected from the regular road network. To achieve this, we move into the landscaping menu, and we now have a new bicycle paths and keys menu. We've got a host of options here, and they're awesome. So let's say we've got a space where there's plenty of actual pedestrianized areas and there's plenty of sidewalks. We may want to commit to a two-way bicycle path exclusively. So in this case, we fortunately have this park road moving through the stretch of Arborview running parallel to it. So we can upgrade this entire stretch to the two-way bicycle path. If you've got the space for it, the divided wide pedestrian bicycle path, a bit of a mouthful, allows for both pedestrians and bidirectional biking paths. Of course, our new bicycle path isn't actually seeing a lot of use because it's just a little easier to move into the dedicated bicycle lanes as part of Arborview Street. So what if we want to really encourage the use of this dedicated segment? Well, if we move into road services and we get rid of all these fancy bike lanes alongside Arborview Street, that should help the cyclists to make a more calculated decision and utilize the pathway here. But I think it depends on some tricky calculations in terms of distance and whatnot. So the reason some cyclists are still utilizing Arborview Street to reach the city high school is that while it's more unsafe, it's technically not illegal. But we can make it illegal to actually bike here. We just need to ensure that if we want to see bikes reach the high school, then we need alternative access points. Let's start by banning biking altogether from Arborview Street. So we have the bicycle restriction upgrade or downgrade if you're European, and we're just going to add this throughout. Now it has a little visual change, and that is the addition of these no biking allowed decals. And I'll get back to them in just a second because that's another annoyance. So we're just going to bike restrict the entire length of the street here. And then we need to make sure that bikes can actually cross Arborview Street and reach the college, because obviously they can't just bike up to the front door anymore. So we're just going to get rid of these segments. Then we're going to grab this divided one and we're going to create an intersection so the bikes can actually cross. And we've now caught Mr. Trafford Mosley on his bike, destined for the city high school, ready to make the cross here. If you do have the space for it, we also have the 3 existing pedestrian bridges now in bike-only versions. With pretty much the same look, just a different texture, and of course they're exclusive to bicycles. So that's another option you can take. I don't think that's going to be fitting here at Arborview Street. So getting back to these no biking allowed decals, I have very mixed feelings, because generally I think they look quite good, and I think they're a great feature when you use the bicycle restriction upgrade on a road. But let's say you're playing a city inspired by, I don't know, Phoenix, Arizona. You want to make it heavily car dependent, suburban sprawling, and you just don't want to see a lot of bikes utilizing your main traffic nodes. Well, fortunately, you don't have to add this upgrade or downgrade to all roads within your city. You can do it district-wide, and this is fantastic. So this is the district of totally Arizona. And we can either promote biking by enabling the Urban Cycling Initiative, where we'll see more bikes than private vehicles, or at least a higher ratio, which is fantastic. Or we can, on the flip side, enable the bicycle traffic restriction policy, which basically forbids bicycles from riding on carriageways among vehicle traffic. They will still utilize specific bike infrastructure you choose to place. So in this case, by enabling this, biking is only going to be allowed here in totally Arizona on our dedicated infrastructure we've added for it, which is fantastic. My problem is that if you enable this traffic restriction policy, the yellow decals are automatically added within the actual district where the decal is applicable. Where I think in reality, this would not be added to roads in Arizona or some other place where biking isn't really a valid form of transportation. Like, imagine building a very archetypical American-themed suburban sprawling shopping center. The municipality would not put these decals everywhere because the entire thing would be developed to be specifically catering to private vehicles and on the flip side be completely hostile to bikes. Yes, that is a very nerdy gripe, but I am a massive nerd, so it fits the bill. I am going to lobby for this to be changed. We get a cool new UI element to help us keep track of all the bike infrastructure we implement and some other pretty vital statistics. So moving into info views, we now have the bicycles UI element. So this allows you to track bicycle parking buildings, bicycle parking stands, as well as the overall bicycle network. I don't think this is on by default, so I advise you to actually enable this because it clearly provides us with an easy overview of the dedicated infrastructure we've implemented thus far. Importantly, you can also enable bicycle traffic volume, which is going to give you a general idea of where there's the most bicycle use. Now, it seems pretty realistic in this case because this is obviously downtown Meridian, the by a large margin most dense area of the city, and then there's a bit of bicycle use out here in Rivercross as well, which is also pretty dense. Now, something tells me that if you want to really incentivize bicycle use by your citizens, they will need additional parking. They can't just rely on the bicycle stands that are part of some and not all base game assets. And we also see that currently our dedicated bike parking availability has a capacity of 0. So this obviously doesn't track all the bike rack props throughout buildings. Fortunately, we get a host of decisions here, once again allowing us to choose specifically what we find the best fit for our city. So if you move into parking spaces, you'll notice some bicycle stands that you can add directly onto existing networks. So let's just try and add a few, and we might just do it by the high school because that did seem to have some activity. So we have a single stand that we can add. Actually, I think, yeah, it's just a single. So let's just try and add a few of these. I'm not sure if this is going to see any use. Probably not without re-upgrading Arborview Street. So let's just do that. Let's just go on a bike-friendly frenzy. Now the stands are still here. They just moved a bit further back, which is really nice that there's still plenty of space for them. These are the single versions. Then there is one which has, what is that, 5 stands. And then there is the bicycle shelter added to the sidewalk. I can't add it in this case, and that is, I assume, a limitation due to the sidewalk just being a little too narrow now here alongside Arborview Street. What we could do then is actually get rid of this altogether on this segment and just have a bicycle lane on one side of Arborview Street. Because that's also a feature we have. Now we should be able to add the shelter to the other side of the street. I do think the shelters look really nice, and I fully understand the extra needed space in the sidewalk. We are also starting to see, well, some electric scooters being parked by our racks. If the road upgrades aren't enough, we also get a pretty sizable selection of dedicated parking assets. So we'll start with the bicycle parking area, which, as the name implies, is just a quick dirty surface with lots of bike racks. Then we get the small bicycle shelter, we get the large bicycle shelter. Having a look at these, they look quite nice, and they have a different surface texture altogether, which I think it's pretty striking, like in terms of the color scheme, but I guess it does fit with the actual bike lane coloring. There's also these slightly anonymous small, medium and large bicycle storages. They have a very contemporary, nice look, and I think they can fit in throughout your downtown because they don't take up a ton of space, but they do add plenty of bike parking capability. You can even add a parking fee if you want your city to be bike friendly, but then not really. There's also a bicycle parking hall, a large bicycle parking hall, which I can like barely fit, and a underground bicycle parking hall. I can only add these because I have bypass validation in developer mode, but these look fantastic as well. Very nice looking assets, and this should, oh yeah, 326 parked bike capacity. So this is a banger for like the really forward-thinking bike-friendly city. This one has a capacity of 60, and this one has 452. Okay, so this is the choice you're gonna make if you want to really utilize the underground space. We now see all of this new capacity being counted in the bicycle UI menu. We have 40 parked bikes so far, but I wouldn't say this is like the most strategic placement. So to test the functionality of the district-wide bicycle restriction and encouragement policies, I have paused the game and added a quick dedicated bicycle network to downtown Meridian, which does allow access to like most of the high density areas. Now, before this network was implemented, this is how the bicycle traffic volume currently looks. So it is a little all over the place, and it certainly doesn't follow dedicated lanes because there weren't any. An interesting part is that when we now select the district to enable the bicycle traffic restriction policy, so that we force the bikes to use our dedicated lanes now, we can actually also enable the urban cycling initiative. So while we can ban the bikes from not using dedicated infrastructure, we can also encourage more bikes to use the actual dedicated infrastructure. So I think this is really nice that we can enable both of these. Anyways, we're going to enable both policies, and we'll see how the traffic pattern evolves. A fairly interesting result, because while we definitely saw a shift in bicycle traffic volume to prioritize the bicycle network we've placed, we still seem to have a bit of traffic on disallowed segments. So maybe there's like a bit of leeway in the choices and calculations behind the citizen usage of bikes. Although I haven't actually been able to find anyone biking down either Madison Street nor Dunhaven Street, despite this being highlighted as a road that is utilized by bicycles sometimes. Moving on, we also get a host of awesome looking new assets for free in this patch. So starting with the 5 service buildings. A very interesting addition is this windmill, which generates a little bit of electricity. I really like this because it has a very, very rural look. There's like some real Great Plains USA vibes over this thing. So it's going to be very interesting to put this to use. Functionally, of course, but also just as a detailing element. Next up in sort of the same category is the addition of the small wind turbine, and I have placed the regular vanilla wind turbine as a bit of a comparison, and yeah, I think that's a welcome change as well if you want to build something of a bit smaller scale. And this theme continues on with the addition of the new smaller transformer station, which, as the name implies, is about 1/4 the size of the regular transformer station. As far as I can tell, the stats are completely the same, so this is very much like an aesthetic choice you've got to make. We also get the multi-column elevated water tower, which is this little thingy here, and I'm just comparing to the water tower we got with the original game way back. So once again, a nice addition. This is less efficient, but you can pretty much squeeze this into many small suburban areas, so that's a welcome change. What is also very welcome is the addition of this small cemetery. So between the one added through the Netherlands region pack and this one, we now have some actual choices that don't fill out 6 football fields. This one looks fantastic, and it has a couple of cool upgrades. The small columbarium, which you can add, as well as this additional burial lot. And I assume you can add several of these to give some sort of modularity when fitting this into an awkward space. Let's move on to the 8 new public transit buildings, starting with some of the smaller ones. The first one is going to be the city bus station, and it's a very welcome change to have bus stations of different sizes to fit different needs. This one has a slightly brutalist but otherwise pretty cool look with a bunch of parking spaces on top. I can't see exactly how many, but I think if I add the additional parking levels upgrade, we can see 170 being the full capacity. We can also add a subway interface, adding 2 subway platforms underneath, which is pretty cool. So this is turning into like a small transit hub on its own. And we can finally add taxi stops as well, which is just built into the existing asset. We get a tram junction station, a tram parallel station, and a tram loop station. And except for the choice of surface here, I really love the aesthetic of these, and they're pretty manageable in terms of size. I imagine these can be squeezed into like an open square as well. They look quite nice. They have seating down here and even a bit of like decorative stuff added. So nice additions overall. Moving up a size category, we get the Terminus Station, and it kind of has like a mid-century vibe of some sort. Very cool looking assets, and I mean, we are always very welcome to new train stations, right? It's got a couple of platforms already, but a host of upgrades. We can add extra platforms to the existing asset. That looks really nice. Takes away some of the ugly surface parking as well. We can add a bus terminal to this side over here, so that once again this is turning into a small transit hub on its own, even though it's not all that small. Oh well. We can further this by adding a tram terminal to the other side, and then we can round it up with some station services, which just adds extra comfort. But is a visual upgrade added over here actually. Overall, just a very nice addition to the existing pool of train options. Moving on to the larger public transit options, we start with the addition of the new railway depot, and I have placed the vanilla rail yard for scale. Now I have mixed feelings about this asset because I've been wanting a smaller rail yard or depot for the longest time, because I'm annoyed by the fact you have to place this expensive behemoth to actually get trains in your city. So this one is smaller, it's slightly less expensive up front, and it is slightly less expensive to run with 24 employees compared to the 30 of the rail yard. But it's still pretty big, isn't it? And if you do want to upgrade it to get extra capacity out of it, it's pretty much the same size as the old rail yard, maybe even larger, like in terms of the visuals. There is also a maintenance hall upgrade, which I might say is very nice looking. It adds this old looking structure and these towers on top. So I would probably upgrade it like this if I were to utilize the full 16 tracks, because then there's a bit of variety between the 2 halls as well. Interestingly, in terms of providing a smaller starting option, I feel like they completely nailed the terminal subway yard. This one is almost half the cost of the fully fledged subway yard, and it is half the cost exactly in maintenance, at least judging by the amount of employees. The caveat, of course, is that you only get access to 5 vehicles compared to the 10 of the regular yard. But this one is also upgradable. You can add extra tracks terminally, so they align themselves in this direction to the original building, or you can add extra tracks that are through tracks and align parallel to the original building. So you have quite the options here in terms of expanding the capacity of this thing. And finally, you can add a terminal maintenance hall as well. Wrapping up the large transportation options with this new cargo transfer station as an additional option for your cargo trains to load and unload cargo to and from trucks, basically. I think this addition is really nice looking. I can imagine this being added to a port or maybe even like an inland industrial area as well. It features these nice looking warehouses and an additional storage warehouse upgrade, which also features additional tracks. We also get a host of new parks, starting with this small bicycle park here, which is, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting looking asset. Next up, we have the large campfire site, an addition that I was a little surprised of because I don't actually use the vanilla campfire site. Maybe I should, but it's always nice with a bit more variety. Then we get some pretty interesting parks from like an architectural point of view. So we have this terrace plaza, which features like these sunken elements, a bit of outdoor seating. It almost looks like outdoor dining. Moving on, we get the winding park. This one is really nice, especially how it manipulates the terrain around it. And then finally, we get the business plaza, which has a very divisive usage of textures, but otherwise certainly looks pretty cool. Now, I was very pleasantly surprised when I learned of the addition of 2 new mixed Oldtown style apartment zones for respectively the European and North American styles. Because while one of the zones probably outshines the other one a little bit, at least in my opinion, they both look fantastic. Let's start with the North American themed one. I haven't placed down all the buildings within these zones, but it is a pretty decent representation of what you can expect. All of these are wall-to-wall versions and they just look fantastic. Now, some of them definitely gives me French Quarter vibes from New Orleans, so I think that's kind of the overall vibe they've been going for, but I would say most of these can be applicable in like pretty much any generic US city you're trying to build. There is also a full set of corner lots with this zone, and they look amazing as well. It's like, you know, when the assets kind of speak for themselves, words are futile. Very poetic. I mean, look at this corner building here. That is just fantastic. And I love the fact that they're mixed use. So they'll have a mixture of apartments providing residential supply and of course commercial lots down below. So you will have restaurants and all kinds of good things. As I mentioned, I do kind of feel like the European version of the Oldtown mixed use kind of steals the show, but that's not because the North American assets are bad in any way. It's just really hard to like stack up to this zone. Look at these assets. They look amazing. Like real Renaissance type architecture with lots of visible timber. Once again, lots of restaurant space and shop space down below. Some of these assets are just, they're among the best I've seen in this game so far. Once again, featuring a pretty rich, diverse selection of corner lots. And then over here, I've stacked up some of the wall-to-wall lots next to each other as well. So there's plenty of variety here. I do expect you can use the recolor mod to really recolorize these as you see fit. At least they randomly spawn with a pretty diverse set of colors, and I think the same is going to be the case for the North American theme. While we're still on the topic of zoning, we also get a bunch of new assets added to perhaps the 2 zones that needed it the most. I'm talking about the low-density North American residential zone and the low-density European-themed residential zone. So I think I've managed to track down all the new assets here for the European theme, at least for level 1, 3 and 5, which is usually when you see the actual change to the asset in terms of the level up process. And these look pretty wonderful, and I love the fact that they cover pretty much all of the different zoning dimensions. So for instance, this is a 2x4, and if you've used the vanilla European low density theme zoned with it, you will be eagerly anticipating this building, because 2x4 is like such a classic repetition zone where you just get the same house over and over and over again. I still think in terms of the styling, like architecturally, these zones attempt to do too many things at once. So you'll have something that is super contemporary mixed with something that is a lot older, and something that was built during, I don't know, the 70s, and I don't even know what this is. So it's trying to do a few too many things at once, but the added variety is nice. And if you're someone who manually plops all buildings with plopped up robles, for instance, you're going to be very happy with this change. Swooping over to the North American editions, these look super nice as well. Some of them especially kind of stand out and remind me of some of the great custom assets we could grab from the workshop for Cities 1. So it's just nice getting all this added variety. I mean, look at this sort of colonial style house. That is beautiful as well. And just like the European version of this zone, it tries to achieve a few too many things at once. So if they plan on continuing to expand existing zones with all new asset models, I would love for them to eventually split it so that we have a more contemporary, maybe 1960s and onwards, single family zone, and something that is a little older, something that predates that as well. And that should pretty much cover the new features, zones, service buildings, parks, and much more within the patch. Now it also ships with a host of bug fixes. I won't dive into detail for those except for the traffic fix, because apparently some of the extra massive traffic we've all been battling following the recent B&B patch was actually caused by a bug in how citizens go about their shopping. I haven't been able to really test the impact of this bug fix, but just going by it visually, there does seem to be quite a bit less traffic, especially in downtown Meridian, which was completely choked full of pedestrians at pretty much all times previously. So something has definitely changed here. I hope they didn't overdo it though. I did enjoy the additional traffic challenge. Of course, now we also have bikes as a feature of trying to alleviate it. And that is going to be a wrap for this showcase. Generally, I feel pretty excited about this patch. I did expect some additional free content besides the bike feature implementation, but I don't think I expected this much, and I think especially the zoning additions are just really nice to have. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What are you most excited about and what disappoints you the most? The comment section is all yours. I want to thank you all so much for watching and sitting through my rambling. I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.